Welcome back to day 2 of the Formula Vee LiTech Systems National Challenge, brought to you by LiTech Systems, BM Promotions, Giant Mandra, Sharp Clicks Photography, DMC Air Conditioning, Dunlop, and Jamel Cabinetry. Racers were greeted for the second day of the Formula Vee LiTech Systems National Challenge with a beautiful sight at Carco Raceway. Blue skies, sunshine, and beautiful temperatures to see us into the second day of competition. Following race 1 yesterday, where we ran the Formula V's in a combined format, 1600s and 1200s, racing it out on the same racetrack, things got a little bit different for day 2, 1200s and 1600s being separated into their own divisions for the remainder of the weekend. As the field got warmed up to see the racetrack for the first time on day 2, 1200s on the card for their second race of the weekend. It was David Campbell and Stephen Butcher who featured at the front of the field yesterday. They get to start on the front row for race 2, followed by Jonathan Scarry and Andrew Lockett on row number 2, with Miles Lockett joining April Welsh on row 3. Bruce Welsh gets to start alongside Matthew Vee on the 4th row, with Brett Scarry joining Callum Lamont on row 5. Jonathan Rudak and Isaac Scarry on row 6, with Connor Welsh trying to fight back through the field after that spin in race 1, joining Campbell Gow on row 7. And joining him at the rear end of the field, Ben Wilkins joins Mackenzie Gow on the 8th row of the grid in positions 15 and 16 for race 2 of the 1200s at the Formula Vee LiTech Systems National Challenge. The whole field lined up on the starting grid ahead of race 2, with the green flag from the marshal at the tail end of the grid sets day 2 in motion of the Formula Vee LiTech Systems National Challenge. Quite a solid start from Stephen Butcher on the outside of the front row. Got him to just get his nose in front, but on the outside line heading into turn 1. Campbell managing to get in front here and steal the lead out of turn 1, while Bruce Welsh going side by side through the S's for the first time with Matthew Vee fighting for those remaining spots in the opening exchange. Was Butcher tucking in behind Gamble on the opening lap there. And Jonathan Scarry dragging the Lockett cars ahead as all sorts of chaos unfolded further behind, with Bielek and Welsh joined with Callum Lamont and April Welsh as well, all involved in a fairly strong fight in the opening half a lap. Day 2 saw an emergence of some very solid pace from young Jonathan Scarry, who managed to gap away from the 2 Lockett cars on this opening exchange as they climbed a hill out of turn 6, joining Butcher and Campbell out front to try and put on a fight for the race lead. As Butcher pulled out to try and make the move on the opening lap here up the inside of Campbell, Scarry not really anywhere for him to go, tucked in behind them. And that did check up their momentum just a little bit here, as another one of the Scarry cars getting a bit of a lock-up down into turn 7, fighting for those remaining placings. That move at the front did allow the 2 Lockett cars, Miles and Andrew, to join the tail end of that group. And a 5-car battle for the race lead on lap 1 of race 2 for the 1200s. After the first opening lap exchange, Bruce Welsh did a very solid job to get away from that second pack, leaving behind the number 4 of Brett Scarry to lead that group. Callum Lamont, Bielek and April Welsh all involved in that battle. But it was Stephen Butcher making the most of his time out front, seemingly finding a bit of an advantage overnight coming off the tail end of race 1 yesterday. He definitely showed some very solid speed into race 2. The aerodynamic tow coming off the back of his car allowed Campbell, Scary and Lockett to all stay in touch down the hill as they continued to open up the gap back to Bruce Welsh, holding down P6 further behind. Callum Lamont once again making a fairly late move to the inside of Matthew Vee LiTech. Caught him by surprise at turn 1 there. Vee LiTech running it very wide at the corner and then jumping the curb through the S's. This allowed Lamont to move up a spot and set his sights after Bruce Welsh in front. In contrast to yesterday's race 1 efforts for your 1200, it looked like Butcher having a clear advantage out front, leaving Campbell behind to try and battle with Scary, who started looking very racy on the second day here. The two Lockett cars, for images by Kim, looking very strong in 4th and 5th. The 41 car of Andrew Lockett just a little bit further behind, holding down that 5th position on the racetrack. Despite a sudden burst of speed out of the gates early on in the race, Scary looked to have started to drop back by this point and started receiving a fair bit of pressure from Lockett behind in the 4th spot. Despite Scary being very late under brakes into turn 6 to close the gap to the back of the 58 of David Campbell. The three of those cars glued together as they climbed the hill. Andrew Lockett, unfortunately, losing touch with that group and finding himself all by his lonesome at Carco Raceway, driving around holding down position 5, while the battle further behind. Lamont, Scary and Welsh continued to rage on throughout this stage of the race too. It was all about Stephen Butcher, who held himself a very healthy margin out front. The one noticeable difference that you could see from your race leader, Stephen Butcher, was so much of a wider line being taken through turn 4, almost all the way out to the edge of the hardstand on the outside of the corner as they climbed the hill, just maximising the momentum. We're further behind at the tail end of the pack. The Jamel Kitchens entry, 18 of Mackenzie Gow, fighting it out with Ben Wilkins in the 8 car for the remaining spots, 15th and 16th on the racetrack. While this battle brewed on, Jonathan Scary found a second wind with the BM Promotions number 23 car and looked to try and make a move on Dave Campbell. Meanwhile, Bruce Welsh trying to make it happen on Brett Scary in the 4 car. Jonathan couldn't make it happen in a straight line, had to settle back in behind at this exchange with the 58 machine. Seeing him still holding on to 3rd on the racetrack, just ahead of Miles Lockett, who is staying in touch behind. And that second battle further back on the racetrack, Bruce Welsh clearing Brett Scary, as did April Welsh as well. It looked at this stage like Brett might have been slowing a little bit on the racetrack, where he dropped to the tail end of that group. as Stephen Butcher cleared out from the rest of the field. It was all about the battle between Jonathan Scarry, Miles Lockett and David Campbell for the remaining placing second and third in this race, as no one was anywhere near quick enough to touch the 13 car. The stinger of Stephen Butcher keeping his nose clean with a very healthy margin out front. Jonathan Scarry having a couple of looks here and there, just playing peekaboo in the mirrors of David Campbell. And David weaving just a little bit on the straights just to try and cover off those inside challenges, forcing Jonathan to choose an alternate line. You can see Lockett in the background there, just waiting for something to happen in front of him to try and join the party. Further back in the pack, the 15 of Connor Welsh was starting to charge his way through here, getting ahead of the 32 of Campbell Gow and leading out a couple of other cars as well. Isaac Scarry in the 44 BM Graphics entry involved in that battle. Everywhere you looked in the 1200 fields here in race 2, there was some battles going on all throughout the field, save for Stephen Butcher, who wanted no part of that, opening up the better part of over a second clear of the rest of the field behind him. Bruce Welsh ultimately was caught out as they closed up the gap to him as well. Callum Lamont trying to make the move as they climbed over the crest of the hill. After challenging a little bit earlier on, Callum Lamont unfortunately lost out and dropped to the tail end of that second big group of cars in the 1200s, resetting his clock and having to do all the hard work again to try and get to the front of that group, which was still being led out by Bruce Welsh. At the turn of the final lap, Jonathan Scarry was looking very racy on David Campbell, having to choose the outside line down into turn 1 as Campbell covered him off nicely for an inside challenge. With Lockett holding his own still. It's Andrew Lockett in the 41 entry holding down P5. Bruce Welsh started the final lap at the head of that second pack of cars from Brett Scarry and then Callum Lamont and April Welsh in chase as they went through the S's for the final time. Out front though, large and in charge was Stephen Butcher. Unchallenged all race long once he got away from the start off the front row. The battle was well and truly in this second group as Lamont started to move forward, going too wide with Scarry as they came out of turn 5. And the climb out of turn 6 on the final time was the last opportunity for Jonathan Scarry to try and make something happen to grab second in this race. Lamont has managed to move forward and gone to the second car in that group just behind Bruce Welsh as they climbed out of turn 6 for the final time. April Welsh trying to challenge Scary as well. But here was the challenge from Jonathan Scary for second outright on the racetrack. Look to the inside down at turn 7. And a very late move on the brakes. Campbell had to run wide over the rumble strip, and that allowed a 3-car drag race to the line. With all 3 of them separated by the smallest of margins, Jonathan Scary just getting away with it to grab second. Miles Lockett pickpocketed David Campbell, knocking him down. And there's your results for the 1200 field there. Stephen Butcher taking the win unchallenged by 1.5 seconds clear. Jonathan Scary grabs second, Miles Lockett third, with David Campbell missing out fourth in race 2 for the 1200s. After this race, Slim Jim caught up with the race winner, Stephen Butcher.
Congratulations on your win, Stephen. And how did you feel about the race today?
Oh, it was good. One better than yesterday, second yesterday, but first in that race then. Didn't have it easy. Me and the guy on pole had an almost identical start into the first corner. So I tucked him behind him and I got him down into turn 7 at the end of the first lap. And I did the old swerving and weaving up the back straight so they don't get your slipstream as much. A little bit quicker on the second lap through Kolb. And he didn't quite catch me, and then I got a bit of a gap because I was talking to him after, and he missed a gear going through Kolb. So I think it was like a 3-second gap, and I kind of maintained that to the end. I was watching him, and you start to think about how many laps to go and what's wrong with the car. Should I go harder? Should I start taking a bit easier? And then you start hitting curves a little bit more than you should have. So in the end, it was a good win. So
you're no stranger to Carco Raceway. You've been here several times racing, so you really do understand the course really well, don't you? The track really well. So when it comes to strategy, I'm presuming that sort of experience leaves you in good stead to win a race.
100%. With Formula V's, there's an old saying, you never lead on the last lap because slipstream is so important. But if you can break the slipstream, because we're also even, all the engines are sealed, everyone's got the same specification gearboxes. Chassis are all different because they're built by different people over the years. And so the idea is if you can slipstream the guy to get the lead on the last lap, you'll win the race. But if you can get a gap, they make a mistake, the guy's behind, and you can maintain that gap without them picking up your slipstream, you can win by a couple of seconds.
But this is the thing about the 1200 class. It's not really about the vehicle. The vehicle, as long as it's up to its expected standard, it's really about the driver's ability, about getting a win in a race like that, isn't it?
100%. The Formula V's, that's their basic principle. If you actually read, I think the rules of the category, I think the first few lines it actually mentions the idea of the category is not about the car or the type of car, but the driver. It actually states, I don't know the exact wording, but it's something like that. And same with the 1600 class, they're exactly the same. So, I mean, there's a few guys might spend more money, do more practice, and that's like in any motorsport. So that's just the nature of motorsport. But you don't have to keep spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. I run a budget of less than $10,000 a year. Doesn't include travelling because that can be expensive like here. But because I run in New South Wales and the state championship over there.
Let's talk about the car, the Stinger, something that you produced yourself and you actually were making for other drivers as well. How did it handle the track today?
Yeah, it's good. This car I built in 2005, so it's 20 years old next year, and no one's ever owned it. I've always had the same car. When I built it, the 1600 class had just started. Before that point, they were all 1200 class, and then the 1600s came in, and I built it for that class. But then I changed it to a 1200. And as I've gotten older, the 1600 guys are really cutthroat and competitive. And like I said, spend a bit more money because they want to win. I guess you could call the number one class. So I just found it's a little bit easier in my pocket to run in this category.
One more race today. How do you feel you're going to go in the second race of day 2 here at the Nationals?
Well, that'll be interesting because I looked at the lap times and the group behind me have gone quicker today. So I'm not even the quickest car in that race, whereas others were. So it'll be interesting, and it'll be once again strategy. I'm hoping I can get away at the start. If I can keep that, like I just did in that one, keep a gap, don't let him catch me. that's the ultimate. But then it's just, if you don't and they start slipstreaming, then it can be a smorgasbord into the last corner, which I've been involved with before.
So you'll be in pole position though for this second race today, won't you?
Yeah, I'll be on pole, that's right. So I'll be on the right-hand side of the track, yeah.
I wish you luck. Congratulations again on the win and good luck with the second race today. Thanks, Stephen.
In much of the same fashion, the Formula V 1600 division was sent out for their second race of the weekend by themselves, with the division of 21 cars due to take the grid. They would get to start from their finishing order following race 1 from yesterday's efforts, which would see Daniel Reynolds starting on the pole alongside Michael Kinsella on the front row of the grid. Darren Williams joining Simon Pace on the second row, with Aaron Pace starting alongside David Casely on row 3. Ryan Stott joins the West Australian Rod Lisson on the fourth row, with Dylan Thomas and Matthew Harriott starting on row 5. Mason Legg starting alongside William Pym on the sixth row, with Nathan Clifton and Kathy Lisson starting on row 7. Renan Sanchez joined Michael Lloyd on the eighth row, with Vinny Paduano and Xavier Babbage-Hockey on row 9. Madeline Matthews was due to start on row 10, Kenneth Wyatt joining alongside, with 20 starters taking to the grid. For the 1600 Formula Vs at the LiTech Systems National Challenge at carco.com.au Raceway. With the whole field lined up on the starting grid, ready to go again for the 1600s at Carco Raceway. There was a few from this field looking to move forward following race 1. Even the angle of attack from Michael Kinsella on the outside of the front row looked to be pointing a fair aggressive angle across the racetrack, and ultimately drawing alongside Daniel Reynolds into turn 1, which saw Reynolds fight his way through to claim the lead on the exit of the first corner. A bit of a squabble further behind as Dylan Thomas in the CXC entry wide at the exit of turn 1, having to slot into that field. And Darren Williams, the leader of the second pack of cars, as they made their way into turn 4 for the first time. And already you can see a small advantage being opened up by your lead pair. Reynolds and Kinsella trying to open up the gap and leave the rest of the cars behind. It was a brilliant start on the opening lap from Daniel Reynolds, even opening up a couple of car lengths from Michael Kinsella as they climbed up the hill out of turn 6. But being the lead car with no one to help get the slipstream from, Reynolds was almost a sitting duck as they made their way down the hill towards turn 7 for the first time. This allowed Kinsella to close right up to the back of his car, almost having a look down into turn 7 before settling back in behind. Williams behind, leading the two of the pace entries. Simon and Aaron in 4th and 5th at the end of lap number 1. The West Australians, Dave Casely and Rod Lisson, were glued together after the first lap, just tucking in right behind the two of the pace entries, with Dylan Thomas dropping down behind them. And Ryan Stott into Team Stott, number 56 entry, tucking in behind as well. Already on the end of the first lap, it was clear that Reynolds and Kinsella had an advantage over the rest of the field, much the same as they did in race 1 yesterday. And that allowed them to open out a healthy margin from the rest of the field, still led by Williams at this stage. Things were shaping up for a pretty solid battle at the front there with Reynolds and Kinsella, and a battle starting to properly form in the fight for third here. Simon Pace looking to the inside of Darren Williams as they crested the hill and came down towards turn 7. Pace with the advantage to get alongside and grab third at turn 7, leaving Williams to try and defend from Aaron Pace now behind him as they all scattered on the main straightaway. David Casely trying to get involved in the fight but couldn't get alongside enough, and in fact Rod Lisson having a big lockup as Casely tried to make the move to grab the spot from Williams, who lost out to Aaron Pace. It was all unfolding in this second pack, now being led by the two of the Pace entries. And Dave Casely managing to squeak his way through in that fight. It was still on as well with Reynolds and Kinsella out front, but the second pack now led by Simon and Aaron Pace, with Dave Casely sitting there in position 5 of the racetrack. It started to look at this stage as if Daniel Reynolds had the advantage that he needed to hold on to that margin. You can see how much he uses on the exit of turn 6 to try and keep the momentum up and lead out from Kinsella, trying to negate that slipstream advantage you can get on the long straight here at Carco Raceway. Further behind, Aaron Pace looking to the inside of Simon down in turn 7. Casely tried to make it 3 wide even just for a moment, settling in behind Aaron Pace as Simon was forced to take the wide line on the exit of turn 7 and join in side by side with Casely in a sprint to the line. And Darren Williams was able to close up into this fight now, and he got involved, almost dipping into the grass down the main straight, as Casely had to get aggressive on the defensive drive down into turn 1 to hold off Simon Pace and Darren Williams from behind him. Aaron Pace with a small error at turn 4 allowed Casely to almost get alongside as they made their way into turn 5. But being on the outside on the run down towards turn 6, put him on the back foot. Williams and Aaron Pace and Simon Pace all involved in the fight. Rod Lisson at the back of that group just watching the chaos unfold. As your leaders with nothing to do in this battle except stretch out those margins a little bit more. An impressive drive from Dave Casely to manage to hold off these cars through turn 6 to lead that pack for a moment before being challenged by Aaron Pace again over the top of the hill down in towards turn 7 on the brakes. And this time it was Casely's turn to take the wide line on the exit of turn 7, just almost bellying the car out on the rumble strip curbing. And that kept him side by side with Pace down the main straight and into turn 1. Darren Williams was doing a very tidy job closing up into this group again, as this pack of cars made their way up through the S's and into turn 4. A big straighten out and a spin from Rod Lisson caught up with an incident, and that did result in a rollover from Ryan Stott. Here's the replay of the action, and Ryan Stott going for a wild ride off at the top of turn 4. The good news is he is okay. Just wasn't able to take part in the remainder of the weekend. That did result in the race being declared on track, with Daniel Reynolds being declared as the winner, Michael Kinsella awarded second place, and Aaron Pace being awarded with third in race 2 for the Formula V 1600s. Following the race, Slim Jim made his way out towards the pit area to have a chat with your race winner, Daniel Reynolds.
It's been a massive weekend of racing here on day 2 for Nationals at Carco Raceway, sponsored by LiTech Systems. I'm joined by the first place getter in the 1600 class with Daniel Reynolds from Canberra. Daniel, congratulations. Another great result. This has been a very successful weekend for you here at Carco.
Yeah, very much so. Thanks for the congrats. As I said, it's definitely been off to a good start. Car's doing really well. Everything's doing what it needs to. So, yeah, we're just fingers crossed we can make it 3 from 3 after the final.
So after this is the third race on the weekend for you. So did you feel a bit more pressure? Are people starting to get used to the track around you and giving you a bit of a nudge when it comes to you being out in front?
I still think it's kind of more or less just me and Michael that are kind of setting the pace and driving away. I felt like I might have had a little bit more on Michael that time, so I don't know if I've gained a little bit or he's lost a little bit, but yeah, we're both pushing as hard as we can, and fingers crossed I can just edge away a little bit in the final.
Are you feeling more comfortable on the track? Because you haven't been, I think twice you've been here to Carco, isn't it? Is that right?
This is the second time I've been here, so last time was 13 years ago, so I mean it was a different car, different surface, so it was more or less just a relearning experience on Friday, but as I said, yeah, we were kind of click out of the blocks and yeah, obviously showing the results.
Did you do any prep on the track before you got here regarding its shape and also what to expect when it came to its bends?
Not necessarily. I mean, we kind of have a general setup that we just roll out to for most tracks. So other than, you know, temperature stuff, just when it comes down to like jettings for certain locations with the engine, it's more or less you just start where we start and go from there.
Now, there was a bit of drama in the race. A couple of competitors obviously had a few issues. Did they have any effect on you whatsoever? You were so far out front you didn't even know about it until after the race had finished.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on. So, I mean, on the last lap that we did, I did encounter some oil, which I'd say obviously is what probably caused later whatever happened further on. But, yeah, I had no idea what's happened until after I got out. So, I mean, the lights went red and we came back to the pits and had to find out then.
So, one more race to go today. And so, you're obviously in a good shape to do well again. So are you in pole position for this upcoming last race?
Yeah, pole position. So, yeah, start exactly where I want to, and hopefully I can finish there as well.
Is it strange being in pole position, giving up the lead, or do you feel the challenge straight away, or is it just get out in front and stay out in front and just keep it solid when it comes to your game plan?
Yeah, I mean, the game plan's simple. I mean, you can't kind of plan too much with V's. You just, you know, I'll just try and get a good start and just go, and whoever comes with me, and if it's like the first race, it might be me and Michael dicing, working together. You don't fight, you just kind of work together, use each other's slipstream to pull away, and if that's how it works out, that's what it is. But ideally, I'd like to just drive away and have a nice lonely race in front.
Well done. Congratulations again, and good luck for the next race coming up very shortly.
Thank you very much.
Callum Lamont having a little bit of an up and down weekend. I would have thought he would have been a little bit further up the field, and then Brett Scary making a return to racing for this event. Car number 4, Vee LiTech.
It all comes down to this for the Formula V 1200s in the LiTech Systems National Challenge here at Carco Raceway. Your drivers on the grid for their final race of the weekend: Stephen Butcher, David Campbell, Jonathan Scary, Miles Lockett, Andrew Lockett, Bruce Welsh, April Welsh, Callum Lamont, Brett Scary, Matthew Bielek, Connor Welsh, Isaac Scary, Jonathan Rudak, Campbell Gow, Ben Wilkins, and Mackenzie Gow. Months of preparation have led up to this weekend to make it happen at Carco Raceway. And for the final time before the weekend comes to a close, we get to see the 1200s do battle. For the final time for the 1200s this weekend for the LiTech Systems National Challenge, the Marshal sets the grid with a green flag at the back. And the field of Formula Vs get underway here. We go on board with Jonathan Scary from the second row of the grid as he challenges Miles Lockett down into turn 1, ultimately having to slip in behind. You can see Stephen Butcher at the front there, getting the advantage over Dave Campbell into turn 1 to lead the field up through the S's And this fantastic onboard shot really tells the story of the huge elevation changes you experience as you make your way around the circuit at Carco Raceway. Trying to hold a tight line in the early stages on cold tyres through turn 4 and keep the momentum up without running too wide on the exit of turn 5 before you plummet down into turn 6 and get hard on the brakes. Scary sets up a beautiful run here, gets to the inside and steals a bit of a slipstream from the cars in front, almost touching wheels with Campbell as they climb the hill. Scary is getting his nose in front to sit second as they reappeared over the top of the hill, and the run down towards turn 7. A brilliant run on this opening lap here from young Jonathan Scary. Sees him into second, right behind Stephen Butcher. Here's the outside look at that. And joining in the party, Bruce Welsh and Miles Lockett as well. As Scary slips through for second, Welsh sitting there, can't make a move, but Lockett goes around the outside trying to grab third from Campbell, ultimately settling in behind. And a great opening lap exchange. Callum Lamont now looking to the inside of Lockett to grab P4. As Miles Lockett runs it out wide on the exit, trying to keep up that momentum. Further behind, Bruce Welsh, who was right in the thick of that battle in the opening lap down in turn 7, at the back of this group a little bit as Campbell goes back up the inside of Scary down at turn 6 to reclaim second under brakes. Having to be very conscious about getting a good run out of this corner to set yourself up for the long straight as they climb over the top of the hill. This allowed Scary to follow them, and they're all trying to steal a slipstream from Stephen Butcher, who has been so strong all weekend long in the Formula V 1200s and looking to try and make a repeat happen in the final race of the weekend. Lamont wide over the exit curbing at turn 7. Is happy with that there's no one fighting with him for position at that point in time, with the two Lockett cars, Miles and Andrew, just a little bit further behind in 5th and 6th on the racetrack. And from this early stage, despite a small margin being opened up by Stephen Butcher, you could be forgiven for thinking that Campbell and Scary were going to give him a solid run for his money as they made their way through turn 5. Lamont and Lockett starting to get into a serious discussion about 4th on the racetrack, with the second of the Lockett cars of Andrew just joining that 3-car battle. But in the early stages, it was all about these three fighting it out as Butcher just managed to find those small margins. And then this started to unfold. David Campbell seemingly slowing as he climbed the hill and lost a position of second to Scary. Further behind there, another one of the Scary cars a bit deeper in the field, having their own race, with Wilkins and Gow at the tail end of the group. You can see here Campbell started really dropping back and slowing as they came down the hill, releasing Butcher and Scary by themselves out front. Callum Lamont fancied a chance to dive up the inside and steal third from David Campbell, whose problems just continued to compound from there, continuing to lose speed down the main straight as he dropped all the way through this pack, losing all of those positions and ultimately failing to finish the race. A DNF in the final of the LiTech Systems National Challenge for Formula V 1200s for David Campbell. So that released your leaders out front, with Stephen Butcher in a commanding position in the race lead, only looking to be challenged by Jonathan Scary, who at this stage might have shown some very decent pace to get the job done, but could not get close enough. Further behind, a 4-car battle emerged as April Welsh joined the party, headed by Callum Lamont and the 2 Lockett cars. And there's Welsh going up the inside of Andrew Lockett at turn 6. Bruce Welsh trying to join the party at the tail end as well to make it a 5-car battle for third over the top of the hill. We started to see some smoke emerging from the back end of Andrew Lockett's car at that point that continued to build up more and more smoke as the race went on. And what started as just a small hint of a haze coming out the rear end of that number 41 entry. April Welsh making it up the inside of Miles Lockett into turn 1 with a brilliant move to grab 4th on the racetrack. Miles Lockett caught out again at turn 1 for another time in this race as Bruce Welsh now fancy to run at him up through the S's. And April setting her sights on the rear gearbox of Callum Lamont just in front. Lamont holding on to 3rd at this point. This was a great scrap for the remaining placings. Further behind as well, Brett Scarey joining the 44 of Isaac Scarey in a battle towards the tail end of the pack. Joined by Mackenzie Gow and Ben Wilkins further down the order. But as the race burned on, Stephen Butcher continued to stretch the gap out over the rest of the field in very similar fashion to what he did in the races all throughout the earlier stages of the weekend here for the Formula Vee LiTech Systems National Challenge. The bullet shape of the Stinger, just too good for the rest of the field at Carco Raceway this weekend. Further behind that battle with Callum Lamont and April Welsh, still very lively in their fight for the 3rd spot on the racetrack. The real battle on the racetrack at this point was all with April Welsh and Callum Lamont out for the 3rd spot. Miles Lockett and Bruce Welsh with Andrew Lockett at the tail end of that pack of that 5-car fight at this point of the race, around about the halfway mark. Was red hot to watch with everyone looking for that inside line, trying to advance or defend. This time April Welsh getting caught out on the outside into turn 1. Loses the 4th spot to Miles Lockett, allowing Bruce to close up onto the back of her number 33 entry for the Medtronics machine. Meanwhile, Callum Lamont continued to lead this pack nicely, just holding on to that 3rd spot and looking very solid every time he was challenged. Stephen Butcher looking very much unfazed out front of this field as Lamont tried to build a gap to break away from this pack behind him. Bruce Welsh had a burst of speed, reminiscent of a couple of times he's shown some serious speed over the course of the weekend, managing to leap out towards the front end of that group and leaving Jonathan Scarey sitting in there in 2nd. At this stage of the race, it looked like he was starting to be caught by the pack behind as he lost touch with Butcher out front. And the smokescreen from the back of the Andrew Lockett entry continued to rage on in this group as April Welsh looking to make the run up the inside of Miles Lockett down the main straight. And Lockett trying to keep it in the middle of the racetrack to somewhat defend from Andrew, who is also on the outside heading into turn 1. Formula V 1200s always proving that you have to keep your head on a swivel when you're buried in a race pack. That allowed Callum Lamont to skip away just a little bit, clear into 3rd momentarily, while Miles Lockett headed up the rest of this pack. And that loss of momentum for April Welsh really started to hurt as she dropped to the tail end of that group. This time around, Miles Lockett challenging hard up the inside on Callum Lamont into turn 7 to pick him off in a stout and robust move to claim 3rd on the racetrack. Lamont immediately on the counter move, trying to get back up the inside down the main straight before getting on the brakes into turn 1. And this is where Callum was very, very exceptionally strong in the earlier races, proving it again here to grab that inside line and grab third again at the first corner. Despite all of their battling for the third and fourth and beyond positions, they were still managing to catch up to the back of Jonathan Scarry, holding on to second in this race. Stephen Butcher wasn't too far away from closing up to the tail end of the pack, almost looking threatening to go a lap down in the closing stages of the race. The battle further behind started to emerge here as 4 and 5 cars started to climb all over the back of Jonathan Scarry and challenge him for second. Jonathan really losing pace in the second half of this final race. On board with him as they're 3 wide going down the hill into turn 7. Lockett and Lamont both trying to slip on by, and Scarry leaving only millimetres to spare on the back of the 91 before running wide on the exit of turn 7 to start the final lap, losing 2 spots at the penultimate lap of the race. That saw Callum Lamont clear into second as Miles Lockett dived up the inside. Scarry fancied a chance to get back alongside and move back into third. While all of that battling was going on further behind, Stephen Butcher was almost at this stage on a parade lap out front. As Butcher pushed the Stinger through the 6th corner of the circuit for the final time in the final race of the weekend, on his way to capping off a beautiful points haul and a set of races for the LiTech Systems National Challenge. The battle was on well and truly behind, but that didn't stop this man as Butcher drove it out of turn 7 for the final time to claim the win. It was all on at turn 7 as Miles Lockett fought up the inside of Callum Lamont to try and drag race him to the line. Lamont almost over the exit curbing in a drag race to the checkered flag. Butcher claiming the win. And Callum Lamont and Miles Lockett almost tied at the finishing line. The end results would see Stephen Butcher claiming yet another win to his name. And an unfortunate disqualification for Callum Lamont elevated Miles Lockett up to second, and Jonathan Scarry awarded with third here in the final race for the Formula V 1200s at the LiTech Systems National Challenge. After the race, Stephen Butcher celebrated his win the only way he knew how. After the race, Slim Jim managed to catch up with Stephen and have a chat with your race winner.
Okay, we've just seen the running of the 1200 class Formula Vs here at Carco Raceway for this massive weekend for the Nationals. Stephen Butcher is the winner. Well done, mate. You've been in front literally the entire run of races here over the weekend, and you came out with the big one at the end of the day.
Yes. My plan was to try to get in front and make a bit of a gap and block, and as I mentioned before, I was swerving on the straight to break the toe and just edged it out, and then they just disappeared. And then about 2 laps to go, I don't know what happened, it dropped on about 3 cylinders. So I'm kind of lucky I had the big gap. So
I was going to say, without that big gap, it would have been a nightmare for you.
If I had been in a pack, I would have been nowhere. So a bit of luck this time. I've had a lot of bad luck at these Nationals, and that was a bit of luck for once.
Well, congratulations again. Well done, and look forward to seeing you here the next time we have the Nationals held here with the Formula Vs.
7 years away? Probably not.
Probably not? I think you're being unkind. You should make it. Thanks again. All the best, Steve.
As the Formula V 1600s rolled out for their final outing of the weekend for the Formula V LiTech Systems National Challenge. One final time to make an impact on this racetrack at carco.com.au Raceway. For a field of Formula V 1600s led by Daniel Reynolds, Michael Kinsella, Aaron Pace, Simon Pace, Darren Williams, Dylan Thomas, David Casely, Rod Lisson, William Pym, Mason Legg, Nathan Clifton, Matthew Harriott, Jason Fowler, Renan Sanchez, Vinny Paduano, Kathy Lisson, Michael Lloyd, Xavier Babbage Hockey, Madeline Matthews, Kenneth Wyatt, and Ryan Stott. The whole field getting their warm-up done before they found their way towards the starting grid to set after their final race of the weekend. As the last of the cars joined the starting grid, the one position left vacant for Ryan Stott after his failure to take the starting grid following the incident earlier in the weekend. We get underway on board with Mason Legg a little bit deeper in the field, watching the action as they all race down towards turn number 1. Legg buried in a fight with a gaggle of 1600s a little bit further up the road. Again shows a huge elevation change as your leaders made their way into turn 4. A field of 6 already trying to break away from Dylan Thomas, the next car further behind in P7, and Rod Lisson in the 8th spot as they made their way around in the opening lap. It was already Daniel Reynolds who was trying to break away with Michael Kinsella in hot pursuit, as we see the wheelwork of Mason Legg fighting it out with the 16 car of Matthew Harriott just in front of him as they go through turns 4 and 5 and down the hill towards turn 6. As Daniel Reynolds leading the way with Michael Kinsella hot on his heels as they climb the hill out of turn 6 for the first time. Aaron Pace in the number 9 Pace drilling entry holding third. This was Legg further back in the pack, fighting it out and getting alongside Harriott with a bit of a wave as well as they crested the top of the hill and down towards turn 7. Here's a look at it from the outside. You can see Legg getting up the inside as we go 3 wide at the head of the pack as well. Aaron Pace really getting the elbows up in the opening lap. Overcooked the entry into turn 7 and lost out in that battle, eventually going back to third as Reynolds and Kinsella went side by side down the main straight, down towards turn 1. Pace left back there in third, with Darren Williams holding on to P4. And Simon Pace rounding out your top 5. Dave Casely, Dylan Thomas, and Rod Lisson at the tail end of that group as they climbed up through the S's. And already you can see your lead 3 starting to break away. A very solid improvement on the pace from Aaron in the 9 car as he runs very wide through turn 4, following the likes of Daniel Reynolds, who was trying to stay with him as well. And a spin further back there in the pack from the 5 car of Michael Lloyd at turn 4. Brought out the localised yellows around turn 4 for the pack, and everyone was lucky to squeak through okay. The battle continued to rage out the front though, as the top 3 slowed a little bit and brought the next few cars right into their fight again. A great scrap in the Formula V 1600s that resulted in 4 cars close together through turn 6, led by Reynolds, Kinsella, Pace and Williams, as Dave Casely tried to go around the outside of Simon Pace at turn 6, eventually tucking in behind to defend Dylan Thomas, who was looking racy as they climbed over the top of the hill. And Aaron Pace Looking again to try and make an outside move down at turn 7. Unable to make it happen on this occasion. Settling into third. As Darren Williams stayed into P4. Kinsella made the move to the inside into turn 1, but couldn't get alongside to get the overlap and had to settle back in for second behind Daniel Reynolds, your race leader. Despite their constant exchanging and fighting and making moves, the top three still managing to edge away from the rest of the field. You can see that super wide line that Daniel Reynolds using through turn 4. Working to his advantage as we had another spin for the back in the pack. The number 10 entry of Jason Fowler going for a bit of a ride on the exit of turn 4. And then a spin again from a little bit deeper in the field. Getting the J turn to recover with the yellows flags being displayed at that corner. That was the 92 car of Madeline Matthews, with the 5 of Michael Lloyd going for a bit of a wild ride to try and avoid that stricken car. And that stricken car at turn 4 did bring out the safety car boards to neutralise this race while the officials and the recovery team got to work. And an opportunity to say thank you to all of the officials and volunteers for putting in their time to make this motorsport happen. As the whole field lined up behind the safety car for a few laps before getting back underway. After a few laps behind the safety car, they were released to go racing once again for a few more laps, led by Daniel Reynolds out front, immediately getting the jump on the field. Michael Kinsella trying to go with him, with Aaron Pace holding on to third ahead of Darren Williams in fourth, and Simon Pace rounding out your top 5. This allowed the whole field to be bunched up once again here, and a couple of opportunities going begging on this race restart as your leaders immediately jumped away from the rest of the pack. And leaving behind at the tail end of that group as well, David Casely and Dylan Thomas having a fairly healthy discussion over 6th and 7th on the racetrack. But it was all about your lead two, as it was from the races earlier in the weekend. Daniel Reynolds and Michael Kinsella fighting it out on the exit of turn 6 before they climbed the hill over the top, with a fair margin back to the next car behind, being held by Aaron Pace at this point, sitting in third as they ascend over the top of the hill and make their run down towards turn 7. Reynolds didn't want to give any opportunity for Kinsella, so forced him to take the outside line under brakes. Was unable to make it work for him. And this is where Reynolds started to get quite defensive, although Kinsella getting alongside into turn 1 before they dive on the brakes and turn them into the corner. Saw Kinsella get back to the lead. Daniel Reynolds almost looking for a move through the S's. Bit of an out-of-sorts place to try and make it happen with the Formula V. Tucked in behind him as they poured into the 4th corner. More battles going further on behind as well. Simon Pace, Darren Williams, and Dave Casely and Dylan Thomas all fighting it out for the remaining placings, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. With the spun car off the racetrack on the exit of turn 4, bringing their race to a close. The 55 of Kenneth Wyatt out of the race, just a couple of laps from the finish. But it was all on at the front with Michael Kinsella holding the lead. Daniel Reynolds had to get creative, and Kinsella holding the inside line down into turn 7, forcing Reynolds to take to the racing line and try and go around the outside. It wasn't going to work this time around. And the last lap board displayed showed they had one more time, and this time they all went defensive. To the hard right-hand side, entry into turn 1. Reynolds having to try the creative line around the outside again into the first corner. And then get the exit on the drive up through the S's, this time going too wide to challenge for the lead, eventually having to yield to Michael Kinsella as they made their way through turns 4 and 5. The yellow flags displayed left Reynolds with only really 1 or 2 opportunities left to try and reclaim the race lead here in their final race of the weekend. And this is where he tried to make it happen. A little peekaboo up the inside, and Kinsella saw him there, actually ran wide, and they got side by side and drag raced up the hill. Reynolds and Kinsella almost glued together, dead even as they crested the top of the hill for the final time at Carco Raceway. Plenty of battles going on further behind as well, as they all fought for the remaining placings on this final lap of the weekend. But it was all on Reynolds and Kinsella side by side down into turn 7 for the final time in the Formula V 1600s. Aaron Pace right there in third to try and pick up the pieces as they both ran wide on the exit. Kinsella out the other side of the curbing, enough to just allow Daniel Reynolds to claim the flag at the line. Kinsella across the line in second, and Aaron Pace across in third. Capping off a brilliant weekend of Formula V 1600 racing. There's your final results. Daniel Reynolds claiming the win at the final corner by about 1/100th of a second from Michael Kinsella in second, and Aaron Pace claiming third here in the Formula V LiTech Systems National Challenge. Some post-race celebrations with Daniel Reynolds being greeted and congratulated by a few of the drivers there in the pits after that onslaught, and a brilliant race for the final time in the Formula V 1600s. It took a moment to catch a breath and relish in the fact of what he just achieved. Following the celebrations, Daniel Reynolds caught up with Slim Jim for the final time this weekend.
We've just seen the running of the 1600 class, and Daniel Reynolds from New South Wales has taken it out. You had a massive weekend, mate, very successful, but that race wasn't in the bag, was it?
No, certainly not. That race certainly wasn't the plan I kind of had. Obviously, the safety car threw something into the mix, and I mean, generally my car kind of needs a lap or two to really get going, so I never really kind of got a roll on, and I imagine it made for some exciting watching.
It certainly did, and Mike came right at you, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I actually thought he had me, coming under the last lap. I mean, contrary to what a lot of the locals are saying, I think I really wanted to lead onto the last lap, and that obviously didn't plan or work out as planned. And Michael obviously did everything he could to defend fairly. And I mean, luckily I was able to find a spot late mid-corner in around turn 6, and obviously side by side down the back straight. So.
It was really late in that race before you got that ascendancy over Michael, wasn't it?
I mean, I don't even know if ascendancy is the right word. Obviously, I finished ahead, but I mean, it was very close. Michael obviously found something, or I lost something, because I certainly didn't feel like I could do anything other than kind of get in front and defend, and as I said, he got ahead, and then I had to try and find my way back.
But after 4 races this weekend, what a great way to finish the weekend, seriously. I mean, what a better way to finish Nationals.
I mean, it makes all the more excitement and just, relief, amazement. I mean, obviously overjoyed at the moment. I'm still trying to calm down. It's an awesome way to win it. Not what I planned, but as I said, it's I'm just thrilled at the moment.
Congratulations again, Daniel. I look forward to seeing you again here at Carco Raceway. Well done, and you've done a really amazing weekend of racing here. Wonderful indeed.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for everyone bringing on a great meeting, inviting us all over, and putting on a great show. And I'd love to come over again and do it again.
See you soon.
Thank you.
for their final say on the weekend. Slim Jim caught up with the Formula V Club of Western Australia President Kathy Lisson.
I'm joined by the president of the Formula V WA Club, Kathy Lisson. Kathy, congratulations. You not only competed, but you've organised this incredible event for the Nationals, and it's been a fantastic weekend of racing.
It has been, yeah. It's been really great.
Are you pleased with the numbers that came from over east to participate with the racing program this weekend?
A few more from Victoria would have been good, but no, we got really well supported. So.
And how did you go personally in the race?
I was doing really well, and then there was oil in the left-hander, and I got pushed back a bit, which is a shame. So
you obviously didn't get a place, but you'd be happy with the result of your racing over the weekend? Because
I did well. I held my own. So yeah.
And how did your husband go?
He did all right. He had that accident in race 2, so it's good to see he's all right, back out there.
He hasn't hurt himself, obviously.
No, car was fine. He was fine. That's all it is.
Listen, you can't put on an event like this without great support. So is there anybody out there you'd like to thank for them helping you out over this weekend, preparing for it, and also the sponsors?
Well, the Scary family especially, for all the signage and the shirts and the stickers and everything. The gift bags were huge, and they're BM Promotions. BM Graphics, sorry. And then there was Giant Mandras, our yearly sponsor. Now company LiTech Systems has sponsored the Nationals. And Jamel something, and DMC Air Conditioning. They're all there, yeah.
It was an outstanding weekend of racing. Yeah. The public that have taken the time to come out and see it have obviously enjoyed it. But more importantly, I think the people racing over the weekend, they absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, have a great weekend, and now you can have a rest.
Now I can rest.
Right, thanks, Kathy. Great to see you again.
Now Collie's next, so thank you.
Thanks heaps.
That's a wrap on the LiTech Systems National Challenge. Thank you to all the competitors, families, and everyone involved for making this happen, and the sponsors as well. To see more of the LiTech Systems National Challenge, check out Formula V WA's social media channels.